Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Anna. So, Anna, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So, Anna, can you please tell us your full type, please?
Sure. I'm an ESTJ, FMTESI, blast, sleep, consume, play.
And what did you think, and how did you feel when you got your results back?
Um, I was I was a little bit speechless for a minute or two. It took some getting used to for sure. I've been in the community for a little bit now, so I had, my idea of what I would be, and then definitely took everyone else's opinion into consideration. There were definitely some similar facets of it, but some coins definitely threw me off for sure.
Gotcha. The interesting thing about your type is you're play last, yet you're like an EJ. So you're gonna be like very IP-ish for like an EJ, which is like a weird contradiction almost, you know? But on the very least, I guess you could double the side also in like a very rudimentary way. Can you share a little bit of your experience being this specific type that's kind of like full of contradictions?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's exactly that threw everybody off. Definitely thought I was an observer. I don't visibly talk about people a whole lot. I can have endless conversations about things, um, especially where my interests lie. And then, of course, being play last threw everyone off because, particularly because I'm often in the Discord VC, and I'm the first person to get on camera every single time. Everyone's like, yeah, she's here to talk, she's here to play, she's here, to interact with everybody. So no way, not play last. That's not possible.
Right.
um, but then I started to process the cues, like actually digest how it is that I interact with people to see that better. And now it makes more sense.
So, which part of Playlist are you not doing then? Because you like to interact with people and you seem to like people. So that part of Playlist doesn't seem to apply to you. But there's also like the part where you don't ping off other people. You know how they say plays like it's like a ping pong back and forth. Do you feel like you don't do the ping pong back and forth? Or
I do not do that at all. I feel like my interactions come off a little bit selfish, if that's a word I can use. It's just like I like to talk about myself. I love to blast everything about myself, but I just never get around to asking the other person questions or engaging them back. Not
right.
very often. And that's where
Gotcha.
it gets a little bit like, I will sit here quietly until you talk, like ask me more, but never back at you.
But you're also info dominant, so I guess you can still converse with people back and forth, but just not like an exchange of energy, but more
Yeah.
of an exchange of information, you know?
Yes. It has to be about information. I don't know how to better explain it.
Okay. Well, why don't we go over your parts then? Let's start with blast. Your blast is SITE. It's it's your first animal, but it's single activated.
Mm.
Can you share a little bit about being a blaster with feminine SI? It's kind of it's a weird combination.
Yeah, it's a lot of talking about products and things that I love to use, new tools that I'm hunting down, whether it's for work or entertainment. But it's MTE, so I'm really in the element when my blast is useful to someone about things. So that's when I really light up, and I'm like, I can see that the receiver is like, tell me more, I want to buy it now. I almost like over promote things sometimes, um, or software or something like that. This tool does that. Why don't you use that? Oh, Google Docs is so old. How could you do that?
That's funny.
Gotta update.
Maybe that's your masculine TE. You're trying to like push
Yeah, I'm pushing people on things.
what's gonna work for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's look at your second animal. This one is like the big one for you because it's double activated. It's double feminine also, if I'm not wrong. So you have the double feminine, double activated SF sleep.
Yes,
And you live in this world
I do.
even more than your blast. Can you share a little bit about having that particular animal?
How much time you got?
You know what? If we spend a lot of time on it, it's all good. So you can go crazy talking about, your
They're saviors, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important for me. Of course, SF is the visual and the popular, and definitely the world I spend 80 to 90% of my time in. Liking how things look is incredibly important to me, to be at peace with everything, my surroundings, how I look, my external presentation, how I feel about myself at home, the type of work that I put out. Even though it's feminine, it always feels like I'm awash with so much external stimuli all the time. So it's really flexible. Like I just swim in art and design all day. I've made the comparison that I don't know if you remember the movie Amelie. It's like a French cult flick from 2004 or something. Anyway, that movie that a lot of people might know, I hope, it just perfectly sums up the way that I like walk through my life. Very visual, very colorful. I'm observing fonts. I'm observing what people are wearing, what are the physical aesthetic qualities of literally everything that I walk through, pass through, and watch how other people interact with physical things. So when others take aesthetics lightly, I get a little bit upset. I'm like, how dare you offend myself? So the way I feel will influence my surroundings, what I wear. So like when I'm feeling sick, I'll wear like this, green hoodie that I wear, like this really gray green hoodie that I wear all the time, or like, if I'm feeling a little bit more enough, I got colors and patterns and hippie girly curly hair and big colorful earrings. Or like if most of the time, because I'm FM, I feel like I lean like the more kind of badass aesthetic. So I want to look like Lara Croft about 50% of the time, leather jackets and heels and all this stuff. So it's very dependent on what image I want to convey. And yeah, it just makes me feel more confident in how I portray myself to others. So
It sounds like you're doing the SF aesthetics very differently from those that has SF consumed, like the ESFPs or the ESTPs that has it in a play position. Yours, because you said that you get offended if someone were to step all over the aesthetics, because for you, because it's in a sleep position, it's very personal. So you're not doing it out of a more shallow reason. It's more like it's like an art form for you. So it's not like something that that you take for granted. It's something that you take seriously.
It's so serious to me.
Yeah, which is pretty cool to see it from like that perspective, because I've only seen the other perspective, the more shallow perspective. Not saying those guys are shallow, but maybe they are for that from the aesthetic perspective, and the other stuff, not so much. So from you, it's very personal. From your description.
Yeah. And also it also adds to it that I come from a very artistic family. Like we're all architects. We all try and make beautiful homes. Like we walk and live this life every day. It's very serious business.
I think the cool thing about your type is, even though your lead ST, which is very like block banger, the fact that you live in this SF world makes you more balanced. Like you don't come across as just like a robotic ESTJ. You're like very, you have a lot of personality that's coming out of you, you know? You know? But your FI is in the bottom. So how do you feel about that? Do you still feel apprehensive about that? Do you still feel like scared that you're doing all that all the time? Or how does it feel for you?
This is where this threw me for a loop. I just was certain I'm not a decider. I feel like confidently, maybe more superficially display my FI. Like I'm not concerned what people may think necessarily about, what I like, don't like, et cetera, et cetera. I don't get weird or, but don't ask me for my opinion. It's maybe around more like in the we'll talk about demon state, but like in a more on serious topics, maybe where like values, NF values are concerned, I get like I don't know. But displaying FI, I do it all the time. Yeah.
And then the sleep animal is essentially like an IP animal. So it's your identity and also kind of like taking on that hero role. So you're like the hero of the story kind of deal. Like a lot of ESTJs that have play last tend to be like, they're almost like an IP almost, you know, in the eyes of a lot of people. Like I don't know if you've heard of the WWE wrestler, MMA fighter Brock Lesnar.
No.
No, so he's an ESTJ. He's play last, double masculine. So
Yeah.
he's like hyper popular in that kinesthetic world, you know. In the kinesthetic world, he's like, for the longest he was the top guy, you know. Like yeah, so and it's crazy because you know, he's play last. So he seems like he's very selfish for a guy that's supposed to be tribal of self. It's really weird. It's like a weird contradiction. So I want to ask you about that weird contradiction where does your tribal self come in when you are also focusing yourself a lot? So it's like a weird dynamic happening there.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's a balance, though I am perhaps obligated to the tribe with TE at the top. I resent it often. And I'm like, God, I just want to do what I want to do. And I will push on it. And I see both of them fairly evenly. But to my immediate friends and family, or I should say family, I'm very like, okay, I have a 3-year-old daughter, so I will of course raise her and accommodate her and help her and all of that, but I'm very open and often talk about how difficult parenting is and how much I don't love about it. And I think that a lot of parents don't do that enough. So I think that is that, balancing tribe and self and trying to like rebel against the tribe.
What about the stereotype with the EJs where, they like to point at the other tribe members? Do you feel like you do that, or do you take ownership of things that happen to you?
I do point fingers. I do. Not a proud moment, but I do it. But I was completely in denial about masculine DE. And I have asked the tribe, like, well, the community, like, do I come off masculine DE? They're like, yeah, of course. I was like, damn, really? Oh no. And then I asked my husband, I'm like, do I come off a little pushy or, pointing? Sometimes he's like, well, do you want the honest answer? So there goes that.
Uh, is your husband an IP, by the way? Because usually EJs and IPs get together.
Yes, he is an IP.
Like, what kind of IP is your husband?
I'm guessing ISFP or FI dumb.
Oh, FI also. Okay, cool. So I guess guys can relate in that sense then.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last part of SF sleep that I want to cover is emotional processing. So how are you when it comes to processing your deep emotions and feelings? Is it something that you struggle with, or are you okay with it? Because some other ESTJs I've interviewed, a lot of them are aware of it, but they get triggered by strong feelings. But I want to hear from your perspective, like how do you feel about your feelings? I know that's a weird way to say it.
Yeah, I get you. It's definitely hard. It's definitely difficult. But I get emotional about my emotions. So I'm like, oh no, I'm having them, but I don't know how to explain them or articulate them. And I think that's where like my husband and I struggle, is that half of the time we're talking about processing my emotions, not the problem we're having or whatever, like bickering about something. It's usually like, okay, let's talk about this so Anna can better understand her own feelings. So he walks me through that. And him being FI lead, he can do that a little bit for me a little better. So he's annoyed with it a little bit, but that's okay. He's helping me through it. And it's still an ongoing like learning process to say it is, to say what it is that is bothering me without masculine DE pushing or any of the external stuff.
Right.
So,
or like blaming the tribe and stuff.
oops. Oops. I have trouble saying I'm sorry too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know about that like the I'm sorry thing. I thought it used to be type related, but now I don't think so anymore. I feel like it's a person thing now.
Maybe.
I think it depends on the person. Some people don't like apologizing. Some people don't care about it, So yeah, that's what I've seen, because I'm like, yeah, there's like deciders and observers that don't like to apologize. And it seems to be like a person thing as opposed to like a type thing. So
Yeah.
that could be like an Anna thing, not like, a play last ESTJ thing.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Totally.
So your sleep is double feminine. Does that mean you have like a lot of mood swings? Like your emotional state would like fluctuate. Like 1 minute you're like super happy, 1 minute you're super sad, 1 minute you're like angry, 1 minute you're like in distress, 1 minute you're like like calm. Like, do you feel like you have like this wild, insane like emotional swings?
I wouldn't call it wild. I can call it easily influenced. So the right media or the right movie will trigger that easily. And I will be, my next hour after that movie or that content or whatever, I'll just be in that high of whether it's sad or happy or whatever it is. I'll just be like, this is my life right now. Yeah, for sure.
That's a good way to put it, like easily influenced. Because like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't externally influenced, then I guess you would have another, maybe it would be like a mental health issue, then maybe like bipolar or something. But if it's just externally influenced, then it's just, just
Yeah.
feminine FI, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Anything can move that. And I see myself being really impressed and like drawn to people with strong DI. In fact, all of my friends and like boyfriends and all this stuff, they've all had strong DI that I can latch onto, that I could say, oh, this is, can I latch onto your values, to your identity? Because I don't have one.
It almost feels very FE like, because you're like taking in the tribe's identity, but it's just because you have double feminine inner world. So yeah, so it's like hard to like solidify anything.
Yeah.
Uh, um, so in terms of emotions, so I have the same functions that you, just in a different order. So we're in the same quadra.
Yes.
Um, so I can relate to a lot of the stuff that you said, but in like a different spin to it, because I'm audio kinesthetic. So I'm curious, with your SF sleep, would you say there's like particular emotions, as you were growing up that you struggled with in particular? I can give you some examples, and maybe that you can use that to
Sure.
move with it.
Sensory examples, please.
Yeah. So for me growing up, the three biggest emotion I struggled with, number one was sadness, second one was anger, and anger is like an iceberg emotion. So if I go down deeper, it's feeling disrespected. And
Sure.
then the third one is loneliness. And then as I got even older, it became like guilt and like lack of self-expression. So what would you say are like emotions that you've personally struggled with your SIFI? And it could be different because when you were like a kid versus a teenager, and then
Yeah.
like becoming like married, and then now you have kids. So it's like obviously it's going to change, right, as you get older.
Mhm.
So what would you say were like the ones that really like stand out to you?
Well, one recurring thing is being condescended. I guess that goes with being disrespected.
Okay.
You mentioned that. I don't know if it's tied to SF sleep, so but that's a strong one. And that
Okay.
one just still can set me off, like of all of those things. It's just like if you're talking to me in a way that alludes to that I don't know this information, when it's clearly, obviously something that everybody should know, I feel very condescended and speak up about it quite a bit. So that comes up quite a bit. I talked about just SF being offended, aesthetics being offended. How dare you not know that this is Van Gogh? Everybody should know that this is I'm giving a very trite example.
So you're a little bit of like an SF aesthetic snob then.
I'm a snob.
Yeah.
I'm a snob. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think FMs in general, they do have like that air, when it comes to aesthetic. It's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like if you watch like the movie A Devil Wears Prada,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's not a bad thing per se. It is what it is, right? So
100%. Yeah. I think that's all I've got though.
no, that's still good though, because at least you could pinpoint like the big one, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a typical EJ problem, because like I'm an EP EJ, you're like an EJ. You're like a weird EJ IJ IP. You're like a mix of a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was often mistyped as SITE. So flip.
Oh, like an ISTJ?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah, for sure. I guess with the rudimentary double deciding, you could you could definitely look like an ISTJ. Like a play last ISTJ or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go over your consume next. Your consume is NF. So NF is correlated with meaning and purpose. And because it's in a consume position, it means gathering new experience for self brings meaning and experience and sense of purpose. Do you relate with that sentiment when you do experience something new, that you feel like an extra sense of motivation, inspiration, or not so much? How do you, or like if let's say you watch something, you travel to a new place, how do those experiences affect you?
Yes. And then I forget that particular thing because I don't get out enough because the play lasts. So then I regret not, doing more experiences, new things, because when I'm in it and then after the fact, I get really like, if I moved by whatever I just experienced and like, oh, that was great, let's do it again. And then I don't. So yeah, so I need to, it's something to work on, but definitely yes. So going to an art gallery, going to a museum, traveling as little as I do it, but when I do, it's amazing, especially after the fact. I can be pretty nostalgic. I am a very meticulous organizer of my photo albums. I curate everything. I print them out. I have photo albums for each vacation, each stage of my daughter's life, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'll do all of that stuff. So the nostalgia like comes in after I've, you know, consumed some new experience. And yeah, I just said that very cyclically, but yeah. For sure, it does happen.
Part of NF consume also is knowing the right direction in life that you're going. So do you feel like you've put the ladder on the right building for yourself, where you are going the right path and it feels like it's right for you? It's not like, oh crap, like I made it to the top, I'm in the wrong place. No, it feels like, no, I'm going the right path. I feel happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel that way?
100%. There are, when other people throughout my life talk about how they've regretted a certain path, I could never understand, like, well, why did you go that way then? I don't, but sometimes I attribute that to like just, for example, career, you know, maybe a bit of luck, maybe not, but so I have an arts background, art family, all this stuff. And then I also just grew up on computers. So it made natural sense that I would implement the arts to the computer. And now I'm a product designer in Silicon Valley. So it all added up quite nicely to me. And I've never like regretted that, and only have ever loved the work I do. So yeah.
Sounds like you were in the right place, the right time, the right family, and like all the planets aligned. And
it did.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess you won the lottery there in that sense when it comes to your career.
Yes. So that all just aligned in every possible way. But as far as just the values in general, it's like I said, I cling to other people with strong values and preferences on things. Like I'll bring this up, you know, like we were both always very adamant about having no more children. Like, this is it, we're having one kid, great, we did that, check, like done. Move along. But then I thought about it and I'm like, well, actually, that's my husband's value. He only ever wanted one kid. I just attached to that so strongly because, you know, well, clearly that's not up for discussion. So that's just the thing we're going to do. And then I thought about it, I was like, if I had a different partner, would that be off the table for me? I don't know. Maybe that's not my value.
Right.
So it's just interesting to think about that. How have I latched onto others in that way for things that are a little bit more serious, maybe?
So yeah, I guess if you had a different partner, you're okay with maybe having two kids or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but maybe.
Yeah. I guess in a sense that makes you like an easy partner to have, because you just latch on to whatever your partner wants. So it's like, okay, you're so easygoing, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty easygoing to whomever has like strong DI in that way, right? Or the friends with my chaos monkey friends, I'm just like, oh god, I don't know. We're both too flexible almost, so I need that like rock, you know.
Right. For the DI rock at least.
Yes,
Yeah.
DI. Mm-hmm.
So let's go over your play now. Your play is double masculine. It's NT, it's problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
When does your play come out, and what is it like? Because it's double masculine, so I'm gonna guess it's super aggressive when it does come out.
Gosh, I don't even I don't know that I've seen that to be terribly aggressive. But I do feel obligated, like at work when we play with systems, you know, put together UI pieces and all this stuff when we talk about product systems, and I get really in the zone. And I get like, I don't know, using thinking with possibilities can be really challenging for me. The NE thing is my almost demon lowest function, NE. So I'm very narrow in my path when I work and can't see what more I could do. So I just kind of stop because it freaks me out. And I tell my boss, because I'm very aware that I'm doing that. And I'm like, you gotta you gotta introduce more possibilities for me, like help me out with that piece, and I can, keep going, but you gotta show the range for me, because I'm concerned I might not be seeing something. So I'm always updating about what am I not seeing. I need help here. I'm stopping.
That's interesting because your NE is masculine, so in a way it should be very confident. But I guess because you have consumed demon and also play last, like the NE is almost like the least activated of all your functions. Although it's not your triggering function, because FI is your triggering function, right? So you wouldn't be triggered by the NE. It's just like you avoid doing it, but it doesn't mean it triggers you. So how do you feel about it personally?
I don't, it's my most uncomfortable thing ever. I just, possibilities freak me out. I can talk more about that. And in fact, that's how my demon state comes out in general. Like, since I was little, if my parents don't call back, because nobody had a cell phone, so I would think they got in a car accident. My mind would just go crazy places, crazy scenarios. Everybody died, end of the world. And sometimes that will spiral a little bit out of control for me. Luckily, I don't know. I recognize it. And so I asked my husband, I'm like, is that crazy? Like, no, like nuclear war going on, right? No, that's not a thing right now. He's like, no, you're good. So as long as I stop it in the tracks, I won't like get too like freaked out from scary possibilities.
This is not the first time I've heard someone mention that
Really?
they're seeing all the negative possibilities. So
Yeah.
I interviewed like an INTP girl, and she said that her masculine NE also sees negative possibilities. So I guess when you do have it in a demon state, it's negative possibilities. While if you have it in a savior state, and then it's positive possibilities, right? So yeah, okay, that's interesting that you were seeing it in that way. I do want to ask you about the other part of double masculine play, sorry.
Yeah.
So a while ago, you on Facebook, you put a picture of you like partying and stuff, and you're like saying how much you love partying and stuff and dancing and stuff. And then like you were pretty like in your face about it. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So in the class, they did a class on Tom Cruise. I don't know if you saw that one. And he's also play last, and he also has double masculine play. And like after his work is done, it's time to play with the tribe. He's so crazy about it. He's just nuts.
Oh,
Like, so I'm curious if you're like kind of like that too. It's like, okay, work is done, time to play with people. And you're like, yeah, it's like super aggressive. Like, do you see yourself being that way when it's like time to play with people?
yes. Although fewer opportunities post-pandemic life. So I don't get out a whole lot and I work entirely from home. So and I'm in the burbs with a kid. So not a whole lot of friends to go play with here and there. But yes. So my company had an offsite just recently, a couple of days ago, was it last weekend or 2 weekends ago? I don't remember. There was drinking involved. And yes, so that came up, like we planned it, we knew when it would happen, and I was ready to party. Like that was my mission there. Because I literally hadn't expended my energy that way in like 5+ years. So I was like, all right, this is where we're all gonna go rage really hard. And so there was just abominable amount of drinking and dancing and fun times in the best way possible. So yes, we went on for like 3 days nonstop, and I was able to keep going.
Yeah.
Despite my loss. Yes.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I find that so fascinating. Like whatever your last animal is, the fact that when you don't do it, a pressure builds up. So
Yes.
when a dam opens, it does look kind of insane when it does come out. I'm the opposite of you. I have sleep last, and it's double masculine. So my intensity is like shutting down from like the tribe, but yours is like going outward to the tribe in the most aggressive manner possible. So
That's true.
yeah. I always think like, okay, what if you had like an outlet for that, like where you like let it out instead of like waiting for like 5 years before like you can go crazy,
Yeah. Yes,
Um,
I think that would be a good idea, to find an outlet of some kind for that.
yeah. Well, you felt good when you partied hard, right? Like you felt really good. So
I felt so good.
yeah. So I see it like as a good thing where you're like, okay, well, why don't you do it more then? Like, like especially,
Totally.
yeah, especially someone like you who's more like IJ-ish, where you
Mhm.
could probably benefit from like
Social time.
doing more crazy stuff, like
Yeah. Give me more chaos, please.
yeah.
Yeah, we had a dinner cruise, danced on that, and then went to the club and danced till 3 a.m. and then it just kept going. It was so impressive. I didn't realize I could do that. That was the whole like surprise to me, even that I just went that hard. Or well, a brief story about Play Last. Like we also had I went to a Halloween party where everyone dressed up for Halloween. I had my costume. I was Velma from Scooby-Doo, fairly classic, fit with my aesthetic and image. And I was like, yes, this is it. And then I show up and like basically presented myself to the crowd. Hooray, we know who that is. That's Velma. Awesome. And that's where the hype died down for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go home. I was there for all of like 45 minutes. Yeah.
I
Like,
guess that's not enough. It needs to be more crazy than that. Like it
it
has to be like,
does.
yeah.
It does.
I I think when you said that you were shocked to see how much capacity you had to party, um, for me it makes perfect sense based on your personality type because like in my opinion, like the EJ's main animal is play. And just like for EPs it's consume, IJs it's blast, and then for IPs it's sleep, right? So I feel like your main animal has like the biggest like capacity to do stuff. Because I have consume demon, it's third, right?
Yeah.
I can consume all day, literally all day, and I have it on a demon state. So like before I consume something, I'm like I kind of feel hesitant to do it. I'm like, do I really want to consume? You know.
Right.
But then like when I get started, I cannot stop. It's like,
Right.
and I can do it all day for like weeks on end without no breaks. So I feel like for you, because you are an EJ and plays your like main animal, if you were to do like tribe stuff all the time and it's like fun, it's like exchange of energy, I
Yeah.
feel like you can go crazy without any problem whatsoever,
Yeah. And in the right settings with the right, vibe or people,
Right.
I'm the last to slow down, and people are like awkwardly like, okay, I have to go. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, bye.
Yeah. And yours is double masculine too. So it's like super like
Aggressive.
aggressive, high capacity, you know. So when you discovered that side of yourself, what did you think? You're like, holy crap, I've been missing out on this. Like, how did you feel like when you discovered it?
Just ooh, especially I think also, with the latching on to like my husband's identity and all of that, and he's kind of on the mopey side, consume sleep, and so he's fairly low energy generally most of the time, and I latch on to that, so I become low energy, and we're both kind of low energy people. And so when it really swings the other way, I was just like, who am I? What is this? Especially since this offsite came, after getting typed, I was able to recognize it a little better. I'm like, what is this? Yeah.
So did you start questioning yourself afterwards and think, maybe I'm not low energy. Maybe I'm like that's never me to begin with. Maybe you are actually high energy if you know if you weren't in the vicinity of your husband who's a moke, right? You know?
It just, yeah, I do think it is dependent on who I'm with, as it is for a lot of people, right? Like, you know, I will accommodate most often to others' energy level.
So if you hang out with other people who are like crackhead personality, do you absorb that too and you become crackhead-ish?
I do. I do.
Okay.
I don't, yeah. The opportunity doesn't present itself very often, but if allowed, then I will go there.
You work in Silicon Valley, so that must be very introverted then, because it's like very techy, or am I wrong?
Well, no. So speaking of NF and values, I do think that like was important for me to not like work in standard, Apple or Google or wherever, where I did need some kind of mission-centered company to work on a product that actually low-key or quote changes the world. So I do work in education, and it's really incredible what we're trying to do in schools across the country. And most of the folks I work with are a little bit younger than me and higher energy. And we just learned that about ourselves at this offsite where I met everyone for the first time in person since, everyone is remote. And, there's a lot of like NF values energy in that company in general. And, one of the first things I said when we all sat down to actually talk about work, because we were partying way too hard. But when we sat down, I was like, guys, I love your energy and I love all of what you're trying to do for everyone else in the entire country. But before we do that, we got to like organize ourselves. And I went all OI on them and like, let's where's the org chart and where's the timeline, because I don't know what's going on because I'm demon NE. And
right.
So
you're probably thinking, who are you to say that after seeing you party so hard for 3 days? Like
damn.
Yeah.
Probably.
People will be like, what are you? This is the same person that was going crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it must have been quite a contrast with me, for sure. Just like she's sitting on her computer, like typing and saying like, where's the timeline and the spreadsheet? And then in the evening, we all party.
Yeah. I think that makes you more of an interesting person. So that's not a bad thing per se. I think that's a good thing. Because like, I mean, you've also heard the saying, right? Like the person who's like the quietest is actually the craziest. So
right.
It's very true, right? So
it's true. Huh?
Yeah. He's like, what they say. It's like, yeah, like watch out for that quiet one right there in the corner. Like that's the one that's like, probably up to no good.
That sums up that line.
Yeah. Let's cover your sexual modalities now. You are FM. We've already talked about it quite in detail, but I want to touch on to the visual part first, and then we'll talk about the tester side after, okay? So for the visual side, you said like you do a lot of visual stuff already, but like what about your visual memory and stuff? Do you feel like the visual stuff is how you remember things, and like numbers and details is something that you like it's not really real to you?
Yes. Yeah. I'm good at spelling, stuff like that, because I see the word.
Oh,
and
okay.
if it doesn't look right, then I know that it's not spelt right.
Right.
Because there's a certain shape that it has. And there's a certain expectation with certain letters. Like this crosses over and is especially helpful when you learn a new language. So my first language is Russian. I was born in Russia.
Which city?
Samara.
Okay. I've been to Russia before, but I've only been to Moscow and St. Petersburg. So
awesome. Yeah, I'd love to get back sometime. But yeah, so it's just there's Russian and then English and then learning French at school, it definitely helps when you learn the initial set of expectations with a language. Like in French, there's a lot of OI sounds. So if a word had IO in it, I'd be like, no, that's, I see the shape of the, it has to be ROI and OI. So there's a lot of that shape recognition when reading, when consuming words in general. Somewhat with numbers. Math is not my strong suit, but when I do need to like calculate a tip in my head, I write the formula in my head. I have to see all the numbers, which takes a while, but like it gets the job done.
So you have like a chalkboard in your head or something?
Yeah,
That's weird. How does that work?
that's weird.
Yeah. In a cool way, in a cool way. I wish I could do that. I don't have that. So
It's kind of a useless weird.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing. And then if you know, my husband's like, oh, I lost these socks, have you seen these socks or something, then I'll spin through like a Rolodex of images of socks, I guess in this case, and see if I recall a specific image for that one thing, and we'll be able to precisely tell you like to the left of this drawer, da 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 da, sort of thing. Yeah.
So you have a catalog in your head.
I do.
I guess that's the specific flavor of your sexual modality because you have SI and your FM. So
Yes.
you have like a book, right? Because I think it's different from those people with SE and their FM. So there's like the big difference there.
Interesting.
Yeah. 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 Even with like, we'll cover the next part, the tester side. So even with a tester, the SE testers and SI testers are quite different. But I want to hear from your perspective. So how do you experience your tester sexual modality? So that's like smell and taste, right? So how do you personally experience that?
The first thing that I think of is nostalgia. Like I do associate smells with nostalgic things. Not very often. I don't have too many core memories tied to scent. But some do, like, you know, they do say that scent does take you back to core memories. And so I think like a specific smell of rubber for some reason reminds me of like the circus when I was a little kid, like 3 years old in Russia. And so that was just the most bizarre thing. I'll smell it, I'm like, back there, right away. And but that's not a very common thing. Taste, I don't know, is very movable too, in that like double feminine SF way. Just like I thought about this recently. I think with food and restaurants, I'm much more concerned with the look of the restaurant than I am with the quality of the food.
Oh, weird.
If I'm being completely honest, because I know that, you know, I'm not snooty about food. Like people are like, oh, this has this texture and this whatever, and I'm like, sure. As long as the decor was nice, I'm good.
Really? Oh, that's so weird. That's so interesting. So if the restaurant looks run down but their food is good, you would still be upset because
it would taste a little bit worse.
what if you're traveling, you're like in a place where like, you know, it looks kind of beaten up. I mean, some people would call it cultured or
Totally. I know what you're talking about.
like, I mean, so if you're going to a place where things are like really beaten up, would you say that it's ugly, or would you say it's like classical or it's cultured? Like how would you spin it?
Oh no, like I totally understand the pull towards like hole in the wall restaurants, you know, so many in San Francisco, so many across the world of just like the best food, the most delicious food coming from those restaurants.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be there when I eat.
Oh, so you'll get takeout then?
I would rather get takeout from those places.
Okay, that makes sense.
It just makes me a little bit not in the mood to eat when I'm in rundown restaurants like linoleum tables. I can't do it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Snob.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, I think it's very interesting because like you live in a different world than me. Like I'm not visual at all. Like I don't
Yeah.
see anything. So like I don't have a visual memory. I guess for you, if you picture something, nostalgic memories come back. Yeah, I don't have any of that. For me, it's all music, right? Because I'm audio. So yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's so different. It really is different. I'm not at all musical. I don't hear music. My husband asks me to stop singing when I try to sing. No.
That's funny.
Yeah, not happening. No musical talent.
All right, Anna, I'm gonna ask you one more question and we'll wrap up the interview, okay? So the last question is nothing fancy. It's just you being info dominant. That's the last part we haven't covered yet. So you are not energy dom, you're info dom. How does that affect your life, being obsessive with accuracy of information as opposed to exchange of energy?
Yeah. Definitely, as I've mentioned a couple of times, just about the quality of information. I will like inquire about details, ask for examples. If I really need to get into the details, especially for work, I just will go down that path. I cannot leap. So I need help, all the help I can get. And in casual conversations too, I really lean in that direction. I don't know what to do with myself with a bunch of energy dumps. I'm just,
Yeah.
what's the conversation about, really?
I feel like the play last people have more trouble with the energy dumps than um the sleep last, because at the very least I can use my play to play along,
Yes.
no pun intended, but
Yeah.
but I can't maintain it for too long either. Like I have to go back to the information accuracy, because for me I'm like, this is nonsense BS. You're like goofing around and stuff. I understand there's a time and place, obviously, but
Yeah.
for day-to-day conversation, I think the info dominance is more in my home space. I guess for
Yeah.
you as well.
I'm so weird about humor too. I'm like, I get weird about people trying to be funny. I don't play along. I don't really, you can tell I'm like TE fake laughing. It gets really weird.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I think you would be more funny if you're like, ha ha ha, that wasn't funny.
right?
I think that
Just
would,
roll with it, right?
yeah. I think if you just said that, I think that would be funnier. But like, and then you would get away with it too because you have like the FM, like the snob vibe, which is great, So,
Right. I'll just be, what's her name? Miranda Priestley and Devil Wears Prada, and just, be the you don't humor me.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And then you could totally get away with it, Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, Anna. So we'll wrap up the interview from here. So thanks for coming out and sharing more about yourself and you know, having people a chance to get to know more about the elusive playlist. Like there's not many of you guys, so that's cool for you to do this. All right. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank
so
you
take
so much.
care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.